So, a warm welcome back, my dears. Good morning. Yes, I'm back after a short break after a visit to Paraguay, and now I'm back in Peru. And last night, my wife and I were sitting on the terrace and we were thinking, what topic would be important for today's video? Let me quote you from an ancient scripture from around 28,000 BC. The dark brothers interfere with the consciousness of men and envelop it with the veil of their night. So the soul remains perpetually bound in unwavering servitude throughout its lifetime, ensnared by the intricate snares of the veil of night. Well, these manipulations are now over. Now, many people are recognizing the path to the light of the sun, to the light of God, with every fiber of our cells, and without any false compromises. Let us now truly be guided by knowledge, wisdom, and beauty. And then we will also become the masters of our lives. And when we were sitting there last night asking what today's topic should be, a message came again from higher authorities. I was in the mood and thought, hey, Troy would be cool. It was in Turkey. I'm such a history fan. But a different message came. Even though we have talked about it many times before, the topic of finance came up once again, and it is still very much present and relevant. Consciousness in connection with finance, especially for the people in Europe, remains important. All right, I thought to myself, then we'll do it that way. Yes, and just like that, I had a brilliant idea to start with today. Look, people keep asking themselves. But first, I have to say what I've prepared for today is going to be a really big deal. We're talking about the Titanic, the Rothschilds, JP Morgan, the central banks. We're talking about Germany, Israel, and many other things that are all connected. And so this will be, yes, it will be an eye opener for some people. Again, I'm very sure of that. Yes. But the question I also asked myself this morning was regarding the topic of consciousness, finance, consciousness in general. What can I do as an individual? Yes, to convey light filled solutions. What can I do better? And this question is actively posed to us again and again. And the answer is simple, more than you might think. According to the law of one, we are all one. We are all interconnected, but not the same. We create, and this is a very important message that many people don't know. We create morphogenetic fields in the collective with our emotions. Okay. Certain forces know this. Negative forces, negative agents, and entities very well. That's why they do everything they can to keep us small in fear, guilt, and atonement. They need us. They need us to realize their own goals, right? The topic is television. Television. Without us, they cannot achieve their goals, and they know that very well. Our emotions, our thoughts, our consciousness create fields. Fields that they, however, want to control for their own selfish and sadistic purposes and benefits. The moment you engage with their manipulation and react, you feed their fields, which they then use against you. Isn't that crazy? Yes, what can we do? Well, simply decide not to expose yourself to the manipulations anymore. Because when are you that? What are you then? You are free. You no longer feed their visions of servitude, including financial servitude. You also no longer feed the collective, the negative collective, and that makes them weaker. It makes them much weaker. You have power over them. You are greater than them. You are more powerful than them. Many of you just don't know it. And a scarcity mindset is exactly one of those fields that they serve very actively, and manipulate. And this false field, this false AI program, you could almost say, because that also plays a role. Yes, that is massively prevalent, especially in the spiritual scene. Who would have thought? And these people then claim to be awakened, and yet they are still subject to this negative control, and they even defend it. I find that a bit strange, actually. Just think 80% of all disputes in families or in marriages are about money. A stable and reliable financial basis is, without a doubt, a fundamental and essential foundation upon which you can confidently build your own personal, individual, and healthy development, both emotionally and physically. That's a fact that cannot be denied. Furthermore, having a good, solid, and dependable financial basis provides you with a deep sense of inner peace and security. And then, as a result, you have the precious time and mental space to truly deal with your own personal, profound, and meaningful issues because you are not constantly living in a state of worry, anxiety, or fear about your financial situation. They just tell it to you differently, twisted, falsified, distorted, and full of untruths, in plain English, lies, and fabrications. There is no scarcity on earth, it really doesn't exist. It is artificially created based on our emotions. It's unbelievable. And a control of our consciousness which many are not aware of at all. A great many people also simply tune out on topics and videos like the one we have right now. They turn their gaze away and don't want to see or hear it. Yes, and that is also controlled, and that is also manipulated. So if you tune out now the video, then at least you know why. But it is the case that at any time at any time you can really also say that currently, at any time, an incredible cosmic energy supports us in manifesting successfully. We should know that. Think big. Think even bigger. Think bigger than you can imagine. Now the full support of the side of light is there. On our side. That's what he said. Remember the message that Stephanie and I made a few weeks ago. So they told us too. So Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene also told us. And Stephanie was also shown very clearly and distinctly by Jeshua that there is no middle ground anymore. Yes? Yes, you have to allow all opinions and so on. No, opinions are opinions. They are not facts. Yes? And not everyone has to dump their mental garbage on others. Honestly, that's how it is. Sometimes it's just better to perhaps be a little more reserved. But the middle ground doesn't exist anymore. It was shown very clearly that there are now two paths. Left or right. So decide now, right now, for light or shadow. With all of your being. Yes, I know when we decide for the light, it brings turbulence with it. Highs, lows, where self-reflection is the order of the day and emotions come up that you should preferably, I had a great experience this week, preferably not project onto others. But that's what readily happens, especially among the masses. Instead, it wants to be looked at and healed. That's part of the process. Sometimes you have to, as Todd also said, this will be a gigantic work that we will publish this year about Todd and his true teachings and the distortion and his messages, because he is very present at the moment. Sometimes you have to go through lies and falsehood, go through it, but always look at the light at the end with focus and hold your path and remain true. These are the times we are living in now. And when we talk about finances, I thought, then today we will about the development of the banking system of fiat money since about 1910, because that is phenomenal. It is historic. It brightens our spirit. This will explain a lot about the dilemma we have today, but it also sharpens our senses. It sharpens our discernment, and that is important now. And then we will also touch on the topic of consciousness in connection with this. And above all, what solutions there are for this dilemma. No problem without a solution. There is a solution for everything if we are willing to look, because they are there. So stick with it until the end, because what I'm going to tell you could be consciousness changing for some of you. Of course, topics like the German essence will come into play, as well as an analysis of current events. We also can't avoid talking about the Titanic, the Olympic perhaps rather, about the Rothschilds, about the JP Morgans, about Rockefeller, about Israel, as well as the Fed, central banks, the First and Second World Wars. So you see, this will really be a small, sweeping historical overview that could be very exciting. So let's get started together. Okay, a very decisive year. You won't believe what an important date the year 1913 is. Yes, okay, that was over 100 years ago. But it has a very crucial significance for what we now call the present Verdandi. In 1871, as many know, the German Empire was founded, and it was crowned with incredible success. The colonial power of England no longer had the influence it would have liked. In Germany, the economy was booming. No one was subjugated. Yes, the unemployment rate was under 1%, the maximum tax rate was 6% income tax, and everyone was doing well. There was no more than the tithe. The land of poets and thinkers flourished again, and the moral compass was set very high. The Germans had once again become a danger, specifically to imperialism and the satanic activities of the deep state at the time. What to do? Well, then in 1910, a small group of the most powerful bankers in the world met. Among them were representatives of J.P. Morgan, of course, yes, Rockefeller, Rothschild, and they met on Jekyll Island. That's a private island resort off the coast of Georgia. Their mission was to create a central banking system that gave the appearance of serving the American people. The creation of a bank that appeared to be state owned but was in fact privately owned. Super simple. A system was to be created, one that appeared to stabilize the economy, but in reality would hand over complete and total control of the entire national money supply to unelected financiers, ultimately enslaving the people. A structure was to be created that would allow the creation of money out of thin air. That's what we have today. For a long time, it was considered a conspiracy theory. I've been saying it for ages. Today, we know that it's true. And this money, created out of thin air, is then also made available to states and citizens who are supposed to pay interest on it. This money never belonged to them. It is created out of thin air. It's also not the money of other savers. It is created out of thin air. So you seriously want interest and the alleged repayment of an amount of money that never belonged to you in the first place? Question mark.
You simply flooded the system with money. Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did. Where does it come from? Do you just print it? We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally. And we do that by buying treasury bills or bonds or other government guaranteed securities, and that actually increases the money supply. We also print actual currency, and we distribute that through the Federal Reserve banks.
You can't describe it as anything other than a highly fraudulent system. And we still follow it today. So you could not only expropriate the citizens, but also drive entire countries into debt, so that in the end, who do these countries belong to? These people. Isn't that incredible? 2 years later, in 1912, the Titanic sank. Today, it's actually almost assumed that it wasn't the Titanic at all, but the Olympic, which was swapped to commit insurance fraud, because the Olympic was rammed by a military ship of the British Navy, suffered immense damage, yes, but the Queen did not want to be liable for it. Why? Because the shipping company was no longer in British ownership, but in the possession of J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan. Exactly. So they decided to do what was not uncommon in the shipping industry, something that had been done time and again in the past. Take the thing out to the high seas, sink it, collect the premium, and that's it. But the plan was much more subtle and much more perfidious. The ship started with a smoldering fire in the coal bunkers, was maneuvered near an ice field to claim it had hit an iceberg. And then the bulkheads were flooded. Of course, this is all a conspiracy theory, right? What happens when you then flood the bulkheads during a smoldering fire that is being sustained? The water comes into contact with the smoldering coal, hydrogen is released. What does hydrogen do? That's the reason why this ship was torn into two pieces. J.P. Morgan himself had many works of art on board, which he then, strangely enough, had removed shortly before the ship set sail. He was supposed to be on board the ship himself, but cancelled shortly beforehand due to an alleged illness, only to be spotted a few days later, fit as a fiddle, yes, in Italy with his mistress. On board were major opponents of a central banking system, for example, the Strauss family or also Guggenheim. Do you seriously believe that it's really just a coincidence that the Federal Reserve was then founded in 1913 and at Christmas, no less? Privatized December 23rd? Well, one might doubt the term federal because the founders were private bankers. First and foremost, a German Jewish family by the name of Warburg. Federal Reserve? Reserve? Well, it can hardly be called a reserve, unless you consider the people to be the reserve. A very interesting context. Who is supposed to take the fall for everything and pay for everything, he has to vouch for everything, the guarantor. But wait a minute, there was something. The brother of the Warburg who co-founded the Fed in the USA was also a Warburg, head of the German Reichsbank. What a coincidence, hmm? In 1913, Woodrow Wilson was made President of the United States, my dears. Shortly before his death, he allegedly stated that he had committed the greatest betrayal of the American people. In fact, the greatest you can possibly imagine. That's true. He approved the privatization of the American Central Bank. The USA could no longer print its own money, and then they had to ask the Fed for permission if they needed money. Of course, for enormous interest rates. This country didn't have to do that before. And Germany didn't have to do that before either. This was a significant change in the way international relations and financial obligations were handled at the time, marking a departure from previous norms. Yes? And then in 1914, the World War broke out, an event that would have far-reaching consequences for the entire world. What a set of connections, right? The synchronicity is, of course, pure coincidence again, or so it would seem to the casual observer. War, what does it mean? Enormous debt. The indebtedness of America, the indebtedness of Europe for the benefit of the private bankers, who then print the money, lend it out for interest, and control the countries. This system of financial manipulation and control has been a recurring theme throughout modern history, with private banking interests often playing a pivotal role in shaping the destinies of nations. Everything is running like clockwork, isn't it? With the Balfour Declaration, which is known today as a landmark document in the history of the 20th century, I have explained this in great detail in my book, Freedom Through Truth. It becomes very clear how easy it was to get all the necessary parties on board. The process of aligning the interests of various stakeholders, including political leaders, financiers, and other influential figures, was facilitated by a combination of shared goals and mutual benefits. The bankers, like the Warburgs, the Rothschilds, well, who count themselves among, I have to put this carefully, the chosen people, they wanted to profit from it. These families, whose names have become synonymous with international finance and banking, were deeply involved in the economic and political developments of the era. Their influence extended across borders and continents, shaping policies and decisions that would have lasting effects on the world. The pursuit of profit, power, and influence was a driving force behind many of the actions taken during this period. And understanding these motivations is essential to comprehending the broader historical context. By examining the intricate web of relationships and interests that underpinned these events, we can gain a clearer picture of how history unfolded and why certain outcomes were inevitable. Balfour, in England, he promised this one chosen people their own country if the Americans were to be drawn into the war, into the First World War. And that's what happened. Well, are we really talking about what is possibly the largest apartheid state in the world right now and the biggest warmonger in the Middle East? It's just a question I'm asking. Yes, their prime ministers, all of them, all the prime ministers, they had completely different birth names than the ones we know. You see, they were changed so that they would sound as if they belonged to this people. There's a huge show going on, people. A huge show. At the UN Assembly, many protested Bibi's speech by leaving. After World War I, a delegation demanded the Balfour Declaration's fulfillment, which surprised many. The country was eventually granted after World War II. In 1934, a boycott was declared against Germans, as reported in newspapers. The Germans knew who was behind all of this, and they stood up to the bankers. They fought back. They minted their own currency, similar to what John F. Kennedy had planned. They wanted to take away the right of central banks and privateers to financially enslave people and control countries. Time and again, the attempt was made. And that's why 1913 is a key year, because a lot was already prepared there, implemented step by step. And in the same year, coincidence, I don't know, the IRS was founded. Internal Revenue Service, the American Tax Office, the tax authorities of America? A coincidence, of course. You work, the Fed prints the money out of thin air, and you give it back to them through the IRS. Great system. It works. Well, what else was done in the same year? The Rockefeller Foundation was founded. Another coincidence, of course. Yes, of course, the famous Mr. Rockefeller is a philanthropist who only wanted to promote the good in people. Yes, by giving earmarked donations to medicine, science, and school education. So he manipulated this science in a desired direction. Earmarked donations. The word alone doesn't mean it's a donation, but it was payment for manipulation so that things go the way you want them to. Yes, we all know that. Bill Gates and company did that too. Soros. He only means well for us, right? He only means well for us, or so he claims, when he wants to substantially and significantly reduce the human population, just like Bill Clinton, just like our Microsoft specialist wants. Well, there are far too many of us on the planet. Yes, you just have to fill the air with poisons, that's part of it, of course, and stop the alleged global warming. Folks, these are not donations, this is bot control. That's a fact. Oh, yes, and then in 1913, another coincidence, the American Cancer Society was founded. All in the same year. But that sounds good, doesn't it? I mean, it can't be that bad to supply people with mustard gas derivatives from old military stockpiles and infuse them into their veins instead of looking for and researching alternative healing methods, right? Yes, and then currently being widely trumpeted once again, yes, the ADL, the Anti Defamation League in America, is in the spotlight. Anti defamation. Yes, of course, they want to promote that the small country with an eye in the Middle East also takes over TikTok and is also under the leadership of this chosen people. When was it founded? 1913. Coincidence? That was certainly not done to censor people, right? But to protect minorities. Very clear. Oh, and of course, it was also a coincidence that the private industry that profited from both wars was in the hands of those who also managed the Federal Reserve, the Internal Revenue Service, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the American Cancer Society. All a coincidence? Folks, the US dollar was worth $1 in 1930, if we start from the year 1930. 1960, just 30 years later, it was only worth 56 cents. 1990, 13 cents. 2025, only $0.05, 5 cents. Compared to the year 1913, it has decreased in value by approximately 99% in terms of its purchasing power. The national debts are higher than ever before. Of course, it's better to ignore that. People's health has certainly gotten better since then, right? Well, now, unfortunately, it hasn't, has it? Trump's numbers, you heard them. 1 in 20,000 children had autism a few decades ago. Today, it's 1 in 31. In certain population groups, black boys and so on, 1 in 12. Wow, okay, all a coincidence. War, my dears, but also disease is a profitable industry and not a real conflict. That's called democratizing. Money is no longer real, my dears. Money is not real. It really isn't. It's not even a banknote anymore. It's a promise to pay that was made, where the actual payment was postponed to never, never day, and you use monopoly money that can't even be declared a banknote anymore because it doesn't meet the conditions for it. It's backed by nothing. We're playing Monopoly. It is centrally managed by a few who decided this about 100 years ago and then enforced it through terror, enslavement, millions of war victims, harmful medications, manipulation, false schooling, and propaganda. Hey, that was a long sentence, wasn't it? But I thought it was cool. Yes, I'll even repeat it again. Money is no longer real, backed by nothing, and we play Monopoly together, centrally managed by a few who decided this 100 years ago. And that was enforced through terror, enslavement, millions of war victims, harmful medications, manipulation, false education, and propaganda. Better safe than sorry. But now, at this particular moment in time, we have reached a significant point where many of these individuals who are not considered NPCs, uh, clones, which should also be mentioned, have seen through this game. And people have now developed solutions, namely ones that can lead us out of this dilemma. Yes, there are solutions. We just don't always see them. They are often precisely the ones that are bad-mouthed to us. For example, I have to bring it up again, it's endlessly present, we have to talk about it. We are allowed to talk about it. The topic of Bitcoin, mining race, the solution from centrality to decentralization. There is nothing more decentralized at the moment. From inflation, the dollar is only worth 5 cents, to deflation, value appreciation, future-oriented stores of value that will surpass that of gold. Complete control, and this is the crucial point, over our own finances. Nobody decides anymore whether I'm allowed to make a transfer or not. Nobody decides anymore whether I can keep my account and when I use it and how I use it or not. No third party has access. No restrictions from a banking system. What do you think? Why do companies like Trump Media hold 15,000 Bitcoin? MicroStrategy over 300,000, Strategy around 600,000, BlackRock 900,000 Bitcoin and more. They bring this in as a wealth reserve, as a corporate reserve, as a store of value, as an official one. The USA has secured parts of its national assets in Bitcoin by law, that is, by executive order. And with the Genius Act, Bitcoin, cryptos, and real estate have now been legally established as a pension plan for American citizens. It doesn't get any better than this. We recognize the signs. These are not coincidences. Especially the topic of finance and Bitcoin is more present than ever right now. The German Bundesbank has just stated, and Deutsche Bank as well, that Bitcoin will probably play an important role in the German and European central banks in the future. They want to have it. It will become a central bank reserve. Just think about that. A far greater potential than gold, which is gigantic. And all these robots and clones and NPCs out there, they are there to stop you from checking this out. Yes, we can also grow from these clones and NPCs because they show us something that's very clear. But if we recognize what this is all about, what they are there for, namely that we can grow from them because they can be a mirror of ourselves, they can be a test for us, a test to see if you can recognize them. You can recognize them quite easily. They are unable to go into depth, for example, to have deep conversations and to do what we call awakening, a true awakening. They are there to prevent us from doing that to a large extent. And the moment we recognize them, we take away their power and the power of their programming. The deep state knows exactly about these things, while the others are branded as tinfoil hat wearers. Well, maybe you should watch movies like Jupiter Ascending or The Island with Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson again and take them more seriously. And that's why things like advertisements work very well on these NPCs and robots, these programmed entities. Television, social media, it works brilliantly on them. They are the easiest to manipulate, and then they pull the others along with them. Yes, this swarm, intelligence. Or, well, it's not intelligence, but you know what I mean. The collective, the collective. Because the mass of people can't be wrong, right? Look, look closely, examine it, and do it with your own true intuition, and not with preconceived dogma. Yes, I'm just quoting Konrad Adenauer. That's all I'm doing when I ask or repeat, where did the 7 million Germans go who disappeared without a trace after the war? Who wanted and staged all these wars? Did they want, as they did during the 30 Years' War, under some pretext, the spirit of the poets and thinkers? To destroy the spirit of Schiller, Kant, Goethe, and others? Do they want to destroy the music of Wagner, Mozart, Beethoven, and other geniuses of their time with electronic noise? The German spirit will one day heal the world. Let's stick to the topic of German. But it doesn't mean that the world will one day be healed by Germany. Please, it's about the values. It's about honor. It's about the essence. It's about honor. It's about humility. It's about Christian thinking. Philosophy, tolerance, humor, civil courage, grace, musicality, bravery, as Tacitus once said, cultural identity, social thinking, very essential components of our culture. Where have they gone? Have all the wars, Bletchley Park, MK Ultra, all that crime and punishment, as well as England, of course, quite clearly, and the country with the eye in the Middle East completely destroyed within us? I think not. But it is currently buried very deep in the souls of most Germans who are not NPCs. And currently, we see exactly this courageous movement and this movement of values coming from a completely different country. Let's talk about it openly. From where then? Who is criticizing the food colorings now? Who criticizes, paracetamol? Who criticizes the metal substances in the injections? Who is cleaning up the deep state? Who wants the criminals out of the country? This country can serve as a model for our own memories that the Germans can one day reconnect with. I'm talking about the United States. Positive thinking, confidence, cultural entity, cultural identity, yes, they are increasing there again. The dark side is being thinned out. It is time for a truly global and worldwide change in values. And it is tangibly underway right now. We just have to look. That's why, of course, it's being portrayed badly in the European media. A better world is being created right now. Look, what we are seeing is a cleanup. This is a house cleaning of the very highest quality. Even if not at the pace that some would like. Here, piece by piece, through management by salami, that is, slice by slice, old harmful patterns are discarded and new ones are created. It's a return to old values in a new guise. Harmful drugs and vaccines exposed. Some states, like Florida, are even completely abandoning the vaccine recommendation. Brilliant. New financial concepts are conquering the market. Bitcoin is being integrated into retirement plans. Old jobs and companies are coming back to the country. Criminality is being actively curbed. Criminal immigrants are being deported. Knife attackers are being addressed finally. Rapists are being addressed and brought to their just punishment. National values are being cultivated again. Chemical additives removed from food. No new wars are being provoked, but instead, attempts are being made to end old ones. Christian values are making a comeback. Attention. All in all, a development that we in Germany could and would actually wish for. But we will probably have to be a little more patient. Perhaps Germany simply needs a finale once more. With people like the gentleman who comes before April. You know who I mean. BlackRock. And that brings us to Germany's actual dilemma. I'll name it now. The extraordinary and special relationship of Germany to a very specific state in the Middle East that uses snipers on children's heads, that was apparently involved in the Kennedy assassination, that was significantly involved in 9/11, was actively involved in the Epstein case, was probably also involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk, and also carries out a genocide in the Gaza Strip. How do you stop that? The problem is that Germany in particular is the right hand of this country. But that hasn't sunk in with the masses yet. People still largely believe the false narrative created over millennia of this one chosen people, which could not be further from the truth. For this, please read my book Moses, Path of Truth, and the book Isaac and Rebekah, the 12 Tribes of Ireland and Scotland. The Rosicrucians knew all that too. Read it. It is so enlightening and can change the future. This one country there doesn't just have a problem with other peoples. It even has an incredibly big problem with its own God. Constantly in fear of punishment, aware of vengeance, and trapped by demanded blood sacrifices. What do you think such religious, untrue narratives do to people? What is their consciousness focused on? Energy follows attention. On love, benevolence, an open mind, beauty, and wisdom? I dare to doubt it. Do you also see the dilemma in its full extent? The constant gaze into the darkness, into the abyss, trapped in guilt and atonement, in a self-created victim role that cries out for healing but receives no attention. Instead, they want to destroy humanity with a Gog-Magog and hope for a dark Messiah who is supposed to enslave everyone else. What kind of unholy Messiah would that be? Who is a Messiah anyway? For example, did Jesus ever want to take on the role of a Messiah at all? The one who is said to have died for our sins? No, absolutely not. He never was. He never died for the sins of others. Everyone has to deal with those themselves. Make amends and then bring healing. He taught self-responsibility, a high level of consciousness, which was and is suppressed by religions. The complete history, especially of religion, has been infiltrated, falsified, distorted, and adapted in favor of false gods and teachings. I have now written 9 books about it. I believe that worldwide there is no greater work, if you take my 9 books together, that speaks about it, uncovers it, tells the truth, reveals the lie, and can also substantiate it. What an event that will be, my dears! If the fact would finally find its way into the collective and people would accept it? It's up to the people, not history, because they have already been revealed and corrected. It is the people's choice, it is the people's comfort, it is the lack of striving for true knowledge and wisdom, because only a few want to know the truth and acquire wisdom. Isn't that sad? A world in which not many people strive for something higher and even feel comfortable in their lifelong prison? Sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I feel like I have to capitulate, throw in the towel, because simply too many people have too simple a mind in this regard and don't want to know, turn their heads away, refuse true knowledge and truth. Light only comes to the one who strives for it. A very important sentence, Thoth. Light only comes to the one who strives for it. There are still too many who wander in the darkness. Likewise, there are some who wander in dark radiance and yet are not children of the light. Attention! Yes. Oh, my dears, you do not know that you are in truth the light, many of you? That you are a son of the great sun. Are you aware of your kinship with the light again, Thoth? Knowledge and wisdom are regarded by many fools out there as ignorance and unimportant. They live in death, because that is their nourishment. However, he who walks the path through many houses and lives, through the darkness, overcomes it, fathoms knowledge and wisdom, always keeping the light of his goal in sight, he will overcome great obstacles and press forward to the light of the true Son of the true God. This brings me back to the beginning of today. Many avoid this path, especially in the spiritual scene. It's very widespread, because everything that can create negative feelings is suppressed. The topic of spiritual bypassing, I also have my own post about it. Spiritual bypassing will never lead you to the true divine path of enlightenment. Never. Nor ever to the discernment of the true. Nor ever to the true understanding of the Christ Sophia. And now, for a moment, we can perhaps turn to the solutions as promised. I've mentioned it before. Some of you know that for some time now, as I said, We have been recommending and supporting a company from Dubai that actually enables people to participate in Bitcoin mining again. Again, a limit of 21 million, 95% has been mined. The increase in value is programmed. And when 95% has already been mined and 60% of the Bitcoin is in the pockets of private investors like you and me, and not in the pockets of large corporations and governments, then they have no possibility of control. But they want in. They also want to introduce it into the central bank system as a reserve currency now, but they have to get access to it. To do that, they have to get our Bitcoin. And whoever mines Bitcoin creates it out of nothing, fresh out of the oven. Look, Putin trades with Bitcoin, gas and oil with China and India. Then we mentioned the Genius Act, the executive order from Donald J. Trump in the 401k pension fund. Deutsche Bank, as I said, wants to make it an integral part of the central bank reserves. On par with gold. This isn't news, my dears. Do you know what this is? These are bombs that have been planted. That Pandora's box for the greedy governments and very specific circles. This is a liberation, it's a liberating blow for the people. This form of investment is not about profit. It's actually about lived freedom, nothing else. And America is making its people aware of this right now. My voice is a bit gone today, can you tell? They don't want me to say this. Bitcoin has long since ceased to be an exotic toy. That's a very important message. It's a potential reserve asset, it's not hype. This is the beginning of a completely new financial architecture. And the USA is showing its citizens the solution to this dilemma, promoting the freedom of every single person if one has recognized the signs and also acts on them. For us, as potential investors, only one question should really arise. Do we want to wait until Bitcoin has finally arrived in the mainstream? Or do you want to be there before the greatest, or the greatest transfer of wealth of the century, perhaps even of the millennium, is now set in motion? Yes, you can already pay with crypto everywhere with debit cards, just normally with a wallet. With Visa, crypto cards, and nobody knows that you have crypto on it. Everywhere, at the hairdressers, the bakers, the butchers, all of it, all of it, all of it is no longer a thing of the future. It really isn't. And these are not coincidences at all, right? The fact that for a year now, the company Mining Grid, which has existed in Bitcoin mining for much longer, but now through Mining Race and with the support of the King of Dubai, His Highness bin Rashid Al Maktoum, who holds 20% of the company, is highly reputable with a mainland license, not a free trade zone license, right? Audited and verified, yes, supported by the Dubai Chambers, that is the chamber, and led by CEOs who enjoy a worldwide reputation. Yes, but it's not just about that. To secure your savings, but also to really generate a passive, permanent income that is independent of the fiat system. That's important, right? And for many years, we ourselves were looking for financial solutions, the topic of precious metals and so on. But now, through Mining Race, which has come into our lives, and with Bitcoin mining at the highest, most reputable level, with a real time monitoring app that you can check every single day. You can also withdraw them every day. You can move them to another wallet. Yes, no one has access. Yes, so I'll just say one thing. You have to want to know, but also dare to act. Because no one can do that for us. Knowledge is one thing, but to possess wisdom is another, because wisdom is lived, wisdom is processed, acted upon knowledge. To put something into action. Yes, yes. As I said, be sure to take a look at everything on our Telegram channel. Or better yet, join a live call, because it's truly gigantic what will and can come out of it. So it can and it will. It really will. Yes, absolutely. This greatest transfer of wealth in financial history is unstoppable. There's no other way. Yes, fiat money is centralized. It's country specific, transfers are problematic, especially to other countries. Then banks say, well, no, if this is going to Bitcoin companies, we don't want to allow that. Or if it goes outside the EU, we don't want to allow that either. We know that classic money is inflationary, an inflatable system that will collapse. Chargebacks with banks are possible. With an account, you are only the holder, not the owner of a bank account. Expropriations are possible and censorship anyway. And none of that is the case with Bitcoin. Decentralized, transferred worldwide in seconds, deflationary because it's limited. Your transaction is your transaction. Your Bitcoin is your Bitcoin. Your Satoshi is your Satoshi. You are the owner of your wallet, not the holder. No one has access to your account, no stranger, unless you give them your seed phrase, your passwords. Yes, and again, the biggest corporations, the large corporations of the world, like Strategy, BlackRock, Trump Media, and so on, they all now hold Bitcoins as a reserve currency. US Vice President J.D. Vance considers Bitcoin safer than any bank in a report. Yes, he's right. Of course, El Salvador is founding the first Bitcoin bank. What is all this supposed to tell us? To quote Michael Saylor, whoever understands Bitcoin owns it. Whoever doesn't understand it criticizes it. And there's really some truth to that. Yeah? The decisive factor ultimately is that it's a store of value equivalent to gold. In a deflationary development, with its limit of 21 million and 95% having already been mined through the so-called halving. Yeah? The potential it has is actually hard to describe. As of September, for example, 24, the price was at about 60,000. Now we're at about double that in 1 year. And all these political decisions hadn't been made yet, which will now make a future for it even bigger. Yeah? You can buy Bitcoin, you can sell it, you have a success story if you've sold it at a profit, but then it's gone. Whoever permanently mines Bitcoin has a permanent passive income and is involved in the creation of this store of value. And that's with mining race with a profit guarantee, permanent increase of the holdings, short-term availability, and then with the absolute highest transparency. You can pull out your investment at any time. You're not tied to long periods. Yeah? They have brought Bitcoin mining back to the people. Yeah? And that's gigantic. Take a look at it. The point is that we're supposed to get this message out. We've been told that we should tell you, we should announce it to you. We have now invested very large amounts of our assets there, and it's going incredibly well. What's happening here is also gigantic in terms of consciousness because it frees the mind. It creates inner peace when you have a stable financial foundation. And when you go shopping, for example, you don't have to use any dollars or euros or whatever, or sol or guarani or whatever, or any dirham, but pay with cryptocurrency. And no one knows where it comes from. No one knows, or rather, no one knows that the payment is being made with crypto. Um, no KYC procedure and all these things. So I have to openly admit, nothing better could have happened to us than the development of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in particular, the way it has developed. And it's currently getting louder and louder so that we see it, so that we pay attention. Yeah? Yes, that was a long video today, I know, yeah? We've combined a lot of things and there are exciting historical facts in it, yes, but also development potential regarding what is happening right now. We also talked about financial solutions through consciousness, and I hope that one message or another has reached you, or simply a single sentence, that might have triggered something in you that perhaps led you to renewed action, to more knowledge, to set the right course for yourselves, to make the right decisions for yourselves. With your own intuition, all the very best from the heart. See you, talk to you soon. Ciao.